Hi, I am the one with Bear again. For those who just came in, but now we're gonna actually start our session. I go by the one with Bear, but my name is Sarah Jean. You guys can feel free to call me whatever you want. And today we are going to go over Clip Studio Paint. And Clip Studio Paint is your all-in-one solution for stunning, ready to publish illustrations, comics, manga, and animation. And that is like the official boring wording for it. Basically, it's awesome. You can use it to do everything. And so before we start, I would like to kind of quickly go over what I do as an artist. So I do a lot of different styles because I like to experiment and play around with different brushes, play around with different rendering techniques. So this is like my more I guess signature look. I use the oil paint flat brush, which we are going to go over later on in the presentation. But I love a lot of heavier paint, blended um, sort of looks for my work. And I also really enjoy the watercolor brushes that are inside Clip Studio Paint that are by default. So I kind of just play around with different look. But due to the nature of watercolor, generally the line art aspect of it is also fairly important. So line art is one of the biggest things inside Clip Studio Paint because uh, like I said before, it is designed for manga artists and animators in Japan. So line art obviously is going to be a huge focus for it. And this is something that I'm really excited to share. If you guys do line art, there are some seriously really neat features inside Clip Studio Paint that is basically exclusive to it. So this is one of the styles that I work with, heavy lines and flat colors. But at the same time, I also kind of do like skinnier lines. So as opposed to the last one that is quite a lot heavier look, like if you compared it to the last one has like, oh, I'm hearing sound coming through. um, but this one is more of a skinnier line art. Again, the same kind of applies to the both principles, right? By the way, this is inspired by Cookie Run Kingdom, which is a commission for Cookie Run Kingdom. I don't know if you guys have heard of the game. But anyway, that's besides the point. And then there is also a style that is heavily like sumie ink brush style. So I really enjoy the inking style in traditional China or traditional Japan kind of look. So I incorporate that a lot into my work as well. And of course, comics is one thing that I'm going to go over today, how to set up a file for your comics and the ease of use in general, all of the features that kind of breed to it. So those are just to go over some of the works that I do and how I use Clip Studio Paint with it. All right. So before we start, we are going to go over some of the brushes that are available inside Clip Studio Paint. There are a lot of different categories. So when I press B, I am going to be led to brushes. And as you can see on the left side, there are a lot of different groups. Now, your interface is going to look different from mine because mine interface has been changed quite a bit. That being said, I am not going to actually go over all of the interface stuff. I will leave some links in the chat later on um, because those kind of require quite a little bit of time to go over. If you're new to Clip Studio Paint, you may need kind of like a walkthrough of what is available on your panels. But generally speaking, when you're under the brush tab, which is over here, you are going to see different folders of different styles of brushes. So basically we have a thick paint brush. So you can see stuff like this. And when you are using a different color, one of the best thing about the brush property inside Clip Studio Paint is that it blends with itself. This is a really powerful thing. I've used a ton of different software when it comes to creating my work. And the fact that in Clip Studio Paint, it allows you to just really easily blend between your colors by just applying pressure on your tablet. Um, it just makes things a lot more intuitive and allows my art style to grow. So there are a ton of different thick paint brushes is what they call it. Like for example, the gouache brushes. Here, the brush, gouache brushes. I cannot speak today. Et cetera, that you can kind of experiment with. And then there is also the realistic watercolor brushes. So these are the thick paint. And then there's also the watercolor brush that just has such a beautiful, like semi-transparent look to it. And then when you release um, the pressure, it's just going to become more transparent. So if I want to like go over this, you can see that it kind of shows it shows the background color as well, just because it's semi-transparent. And there are also let me just change to this one. There are also under India Ink, they recently has introduced brushes that look like this. So this kind of looks like those brushes that are available that interact with a dry stock, for example, that sort of bleeds into other areas. And I really love how beautifully it kind of goes together, that you can create different types of looks. So these are some of, I cannot go over every single brush. I can only kind of show you the gist of it, because there, if we're going to go over every single brush, this is going to like be a 2 hour session, and we can't do that unfortunately, as much as I want to. And then there is one of my favorite brushes recently, and this is under the pastel category. It's a charcoal brush. And if your tablet has tilt, it can allow you to do like um, kind of really sort of like if you're using a traditional charcoal, like when you're tilting it to the side, and then when you tilt your pen a little bit more like 90-degree, it's going to give you a skinnier line. So this, I've been like using this for quite a lot of different work that I've been doing recently. So those are the charcoal. And of course the pencil brush. There are a ton of different pencil brush, and they're, fairly straightforward. They're nothing overly exciting. Hold on, let me. But a good pencil brush is really just kind of all that you need when it comes to sketching, when it comes to drawing really quickly. So pencil brushes, there are a ton of them to choose from. Pen brush, of course, there's the G pen. Actually, let me use a real G pen brush. So for those who don't know, G-Pen is one of those dip pen nibs that are very commonly called in Japan. So basically, they're like a very pointy nib. This workshop is the Clip Studio Paint workshop. G-Pen nib, and when you dip it in ink, you're basically going to glide really, really easily and do like really skinny line and really thick lines. So these brushes are, they're fairly straightforward. And there are also other brushes, such as, let me actually, like this one is really beautiful. This is called a dry ink brush. So this one has a more, you know, traditional dry inking brush, which is like the Bristol brush look. And these are all default in Clip Studio Paint. I actually very rarely download brushes for Clip Studio just because the massive amount of flexibility that already exists in the default brushes. But you can actually download quite a lot of them from the asset store as well for free. But for me, I don't like to complicate things too much. So I basically just use default or the stuff that I create. All right, so those are the brushes. The more exciting part, however, is not any of these, right? So, like, these are, super straightforward. You can probably find a lot of different brushes in a lot of different software. But one of the best things about Clip Studio Paint is the decoration brushes. So, decoration brushes is under decoration tab. And you can see like there are a ton of different ones. There are sparkles, there are cross hatching, but like some of the stuff that is the most exciting is like, oh, let me actually make it a little bit bigger. It's like lace brush, you know, and zipper brush. Oh, actually, let me just make it a little bit bigger. Drawing zippers is one of the most annoying thing, right? So the fact that you can have these um beautiful brush that you can actually easily create yourself by just allowing the software to stitch them together for you, like chain brush, for example, and also different types of chains, and these are all available in Clip Studio Paint by default. And I like, honestly, this is so important for especially comic book artists, for animators, because these things, if you want to draw them by hand, just imagine how much time you would need to have to draw these by hand. And you can also have like flower brushes, different flowers, different types of brushes, uh, like there there's a lot of different ones, like rocks. um there's even more that I haven't actually downloaded, like grass. Like, who has time to honestly draw all of these grass in the background by hand? you know so I also there are also a lot of different assets to purchase or to try out, like for example these, because I do a lot of Asian aesthetic. So like I draw quite a lot of kimonos or gowns from ancient China. So these really beautiful brushes that people have created, I also purchased them for myself. Deal with vector graphic or raster. That is something that we're going to get into very quickly because yes, Clip Studio Paint has vector. It is quite different from uh, what you would normally think of vector. So, for example, vector, a lot of people think of vector and then they kind of immediately snap to, for example, Illustrator or the vector in Photoshop. Now, the way that Clip Studio handles vector is very different, and it is meant for Illustrator, comic book artists, and animators. And honestly, I have not found a single thing that is better anywhere. But we're going to talk about that. Um, so these are basically brushes, the amount that is available. I have a lot of webinars that cover how to design your own brushes and how Brush Engine works, but those are very expansive and hard to get into in like an hour. So we are going to not talk about that today. All right, so moving on to raster versus vector. So for the most part, when you are doing painting inside Clip Studio Paint, you will want to use raster. And raster is, exactly what I'm using right now. So raster allows you to blend very easily. Actually, let me use one of the brushes that I use. So it allows you to blend colors very easily. Now, vector, on the other hand, is something that is mathematically calculated. So it is not able to blend due to the pixels. They don't have pixel, basically. So for vector, it is all about path and points. But inside Clip Studio Paint, the vector and rasters differentiation is actually down to layer. You will see on your layer tab, you have new raster layer and new vector layer. And inside vector layer, what they do is you just draw like normal, right? But each of these lines is actually a generated vector line. And why this is so awesome for us, for line artists, is that when you are on a vector layer, whatever the line that you draw, it is automatically calculated. And this means when you're using an eraser, you can see that a vector eraser will be enabled. When you're on a raster layer, the vector eraser is disabled. But on here, it is enabled. And what that does is when you're using the eraser, it can calculate where the path intersect or how a path is generated, and you can basically erase very cleanly. So this, for like, just imagine if you're drawing hair. Let's try that. So if I'm going to be drawing hair, I can basically overshoot all of my lines, right? And I just use the vector eraser and go over all of the intersection, and it's going to erase them for me really cleanly, right? This is just absolutely phenomenal. I cannot tell you how much time we spend on cleaning up lines using vector. And not even that. For example, here, let's start another one. What did I do? Okay, there you go. So if I'm going to draw this, right? And let's draw, so let's just call this abstract art. And we have different modes. So like, for example, this one erases up to in the intersection. Like if I erase that, it's going to delete that intersection, right? But if I do whole line, it is basically going to detect which line that I just drew that was a complete path, and it's going to delete that entire path for me. So this is really awesome because like, for example, that line that I initially drew, you can basically erase that whole thing if you drew it wrong without it affecting the other lines that you have put down. And this makes vector itself such a powerful tool for manga artists because you're constantly going back and forth struggling with the lines. Now, that is not the only thing that it can do. So the vector eraser is already super awesome, right? But there's actually something else called correct line. So correct line is one of the tools that is going to be available on your toolbar on the bottom. And under the correct line tab, you have a lot of different options. If you're on a vector layer, if your line art is on a vector layer, you will be able to use all of these. And one of the most important is, for example, correct line width. So let's say today, this drawing, I want, I'm not super happy with the line width. Like some of the areas are too thick, some of the areas are too thin. I don't like that. So I want it to be all consistent, like same line width. So I'm going to select fixed width, 4 points. Why not? And process the whole line and then just kind of quickly brush over the whole thing. And just like that, all of the line width is going to become the same. To make it a little bit more obvious, I'll do this again. So let's try 2. All right. So this means wherever I go over, it is going to become exactly the value that I have given it. So now every single line has become 2 points. And this is before, this is after, right? So This gives us so much control over our line art without it losing quality. And the reason why it doesn't lose quality is because the pixels are based on the path. So the path has not changed, and therefore it is lossless in terms of the line quality. You can expand it, you can shrink it, it's going to be exactly the same. And if I want to like make it thicker, like for example, like that's not processed the whole line. I want to make these parts thicker. I just go over. This is just for demonstration purpose. Okay, let's just make let's just make it this particular area super thick, or you can make it narrower, right? Like all of this, and making it narrower doesn't mean that it's disappeared because the path is still there. So even if you like have made it kind of just disappear, if you make it thick, since the path is still there, it is still going to bounce right back. So even if you feel like, oh, it's so skinny to a point where the line has disappeared, if you regret it later on, just make it thicker again. So this in itself just blows my mind, and it was I have to be honest, like I started digital art journey with line art as a main focus, and I've used line art in a lot of different software, and it wasn't, and this was like the changing point for me permanently into Clip Studio Paint, because this is just like so flexible, um, and so fun to use, so easy to kind of pick up, really intuitive, because you're basically just drawing on a different layer, different types of layer, right? It's not even like such a special setup for it. You just start a layer, start drawing. And another thing is I can change. Um, so pinching a vector line means you can move a line very easily. So let's say I want to move this thing. I can just like click on it and then drag, right? Like making it a little bit bigger. And then since once I drag that out, these lines become intersecting. So I just go back, use the eraser. Oh, I use the whole line. I can just go back and use the eraser and clean that up again. And let's go back to that. Maybe I don't know, like drag this hair out a bit more, you know. Let's see that. I can move these lines super easily without having to redraw them. Um, and this honestly saves a lot of time. There's a ton of different settings that you can use to make these a little bit more flexible, but I can just like move these around very easily just by using pinch vector line. So honestly, I can go really, really in depth into all of this just because each function has a lot of different settings, like for example, effect range, pinch level, etc., etc. But due to time constraint, we can't really go into too much detail. I just wanted to show you like what it can do. Um, Another thing is flatting. So somebody said that they wanted to do a comic book, for example, and then another two people said that they are trying to make animation. So inside Clip Studio Paint, when you're doing flats, for example, uh, like how would you usually do this flat, right? You normally would need to go into like drawing mode and like kind of fill it, or just fill the side and then use the fill tool, etc., right? um, or you use the paint bucket, uh, or you use the paint bucket and then like fill them in, right? Or you use the lasso tool and then lasso the side, etc. This is usually how people draw flats, right? But inside Clip Studio, what you do is you use a feature called close and fill. So this is called close and fill. You just basically close around an area that you want to fill. and it's going to automatically detect closed area inside the area you just selected and then fill it. So I don't have to actually go over all of the flowers individually. I can just circle around these flowers and bam, it's done. Right? So just stuff like this, it is to increase and kind of take away the pressure from manga artists because they're under such a time constraint. So just when you have so much details inside an area that it may necessarily it may be a little bit hard to um, kind of take care of. You can basically just use this feature to fill everything at once, right? So this is another feature called close and fill, and I'm going to share a link with you if you're curious about any of these features to learn more in depth later on. Okay, so those are done. Now let's move on to the next one. And this may actually help you guys to do colors. And it is a very interesting concept. At first, I didn't really understand it, but then the more I used it, the more I realized that I can use it to kind of experiment with color, and that is colorization. So I have a vector line art done over here. This is my original character, and I'm going to go into edit, colorize, and colorize all. So colorize all is a very interesting technology. It kind of guess what your subject is and apply a color palette to it. It basically just automatically fills in some random colors, right? And the colors are sort of wacky, to be honest, but what we're going to do is something else. I am going to start a raster layer on the bottom of this line art. And again, you see like my line art is done on vector layer. And I'm going to put down some colors that I feel like is going to be something for this character. I'm just going to put down, I don't know, like maybe yellow? Give me a color in chat. Red? Aqua? Okay. Done. Purple? Awesome. So let's have red. Okay, you know what? Red, purple. Let's put some purple over here. And aqua. Some fancy color. What's aqua? Aqua is blue. Here, let's have that. Okay. Gold eyes. Okay, let's see if they can detect that. All right, and then I think this is good enough, right? And then you're like, wow, the presenter has gone crazy. What is she doing? And then once we lay down these basic colors that don't really seem like anything, we're going to go into edit again, colorize, use hint image and colorize. Hint image is going to be whichever layer that you set as a reference layer. So you can see like my vector line art over here. This is the vector icon. There is like a little lighthouse in front of it, and that's the icon. It is a reference layer. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to select the color that we just put down and then colorize, use hint image and colorize. So this is going to take that layer with the lighthouse and then take that into consideration in combination with the colors that we just put down. And it's going to process and it's going to basically throw in the colors just like that. Now we've spent like very little time trying to make it good. You can make it a lot better. You can also go into settings to kind of limit the amount of blur by using the event settings, but that's going to take a little bit more time. it's not as speedy as what we just did. So it basically like blends the different color that you have put down and use the reference layer as a confinement and then try to fill it in an interesting way. And let's see if we can combine it with the other layer that we have. And I'm just going to like scroll through different color modes. I use this method to find different interesting combination for my characters or my illustrations. You know, sometimes it can become very unexpected. You know, like you just so these are all of the different color modes that we can combine together. But I feel like, you know, that's a pretty interesting combination. That's pretty cool too. So from there, this is the sort of color palette that I feel like, oh, you know, that might be interesting. And then I would start another layer on top. And then I just start to, you know, build on top of that. I would like, okay, give it a little bit more, I guess, definition, right? I can just start to, you know, combine the colors, bring them around, stuff like that. This is basically how I usually start my big illustration. Is I decide a color palette and I try to let the software do something really unexpected, and then I build on top of it and then make it my own. Because the reason why this is such a fun way to discover different things is because like sometimes we're very limited to what we think is logical, right? So in order for us to consider something beyond our own knowledge, this sort of like randomness is really great. So I always encourage people to experiment a little bit more. If you have access to Clip Studio Paint, definitely give this feature a try. Okay, so that is the colorization, and we only have 15 minutes left. No, that's okay. We're moving on to the next one. So another two original characters that I have are these two, and I wanted to tell you guys about the 3D models that are inside Clip Studio Paint as well. So one of the most important things when it comes to your art, and also like for example, if you guys want to make animation or manga, posing and proportion or perspective is extremely important, right? So but sometimes like we don't really have, you know, there are some poses that I just can't really do in real life, right? To make my own reference. So inside Clip Studio Paint, there are 3D models that you can use to kind of pose into the stuff that you want. And these are kind of like the finished sketch that I have, but I usually would start with a very rough sketch of how I want the characters to look, right? Just very, very rough concept. And then I'm going to use the 3D model to kind of pose out what I want. The 3D models is under the materials. There are a lot of different body types. Actually, let me just drag one in. I designed, a lot of people are not super happy with the you know, muscular baby that I designed. I can't tell why. I think he's really awesome, but you know, many people tell me to not use him inside presentation, like whatever. You know. And so there are a ton of different body types that you can have. Thank you guys for all the love. See, I know you guys know better. um there are a ton of different poses that are pre-existing, and you can basically just have these different pose apply to the body types that you already have. And that is exactly what I did. Is I would have like different body types, and then I would start posing them. So posing them does take a little bit of getting used to. Again, I have other videos to teach you how to pose them. That was actually the birth of the muscular baby. but you can like easily kind of like drag the body, like drag the vision, for example, and just like rotate them. I don't know. I don't know what that was. And then also use a lot of different props, right? There are a ton of different small object. These are all default for free. You can have access to, for example, umbrella. Camera is really hard to draw, so I like basically dragged in a bunch of chairs for them to sit on, and then afterward, I just decrease the layer opacity, and then I drew on top of it. So this is another thing that people constantly kind of get confused about. Like when you're designing your own reference, there is nothing wrong with drawing directly on top of it to save time. Because time is of essence. If you can get your ideas out quickly, use whatever you can to assist you with that. That is very different from like copying someone else's artwork or tracing over someone else's artwork, right? This is literally just tracing over your own reference that you have created to help you envision, to help you create what you have envisioned, right? So I will basically make these 3D models, and then I would draw on top of it and then adjust as I go, and then just apply colors. So that is the end product. Again, the 3D model is a very vast subject inside Clip Studio Paint. It has a ton of different things. It even has something like a whole background, right? So, like for example, if you need to draw manga, if you need to just have like different angles of the subway train, like just having to draw them one by one is going to take a lot of time. So the manga artist will use these pre-existing 3D assets to kind of just help them set the background, for example. And these are all free inside Clip Studio Paint as a default. Okay, so that is the 3D model. Now we're going to go over the comics. So comics, I'm really excited that you guys wanted to do comics on your own as well. I'm really happy for you. And if you want to learn more about how to use comic assets inside Clip Studio Paint, that is also like a really big, really big topic. But today I'm just going to show you the very basic of why it's so convenient. I'm going to Control N to create a new file, and then there are different stuff like a webtoon. Webtoon, it basically kind of like helps you slice up the different pages, but we're gonna go over the regular page. So for example, we're gonna start like an A4 monochrome, which is one of the more default sizes, right? There are a lot of template that you can potentially use. Webtoon, awesome. There are a ton of different layouts that you can have, but at the same time, like most of the people, I assume, is going to want to like just panel it themselves. So we're gonna disable that template and then just click OK. And so I'm gonna start a frame. And then from this frame, we're going to divide the frame. You can literally just do that super easily. Like that's how you panel. You can, and then afterward, you can expand. If you need to change like the, let me actually, where did it go? There you go. Okay. You can, like, if you feel like the frame that you just drew is not great or too small, you can adjust it just like that. And aside from that, it also automatically masked everything for you. So when I'm drawing inside this panel, for example, it sorted them into different folders, right? Like as you can see here, they are all different folders for different grids, and these are all the masks. So that means this is a monochrome one, which means it's going to be in black and white. I can draw like whatever. I can draw outside of bound, but it's not going to go outside because they are already masked for me. So this makes paneling super, super, super easy and really fast as well. And then you can have a ton of different layers inside each folder, just like you would with paintings. So I can have like a pencil sketch. Oh, let's draw let's draw something concrete. Let's draw a bear, just because why not? That's my really just my top tier art. And then we can decrease the opacity to make it into a draft. And then we use the vector layer and start inking. There we go. Start inking, and let's just pretend that it's like the most beautiful inking you've ever seen in your life. Okay. And then you use the eraser to clean it up. There you go. It's really just that easy. And then you can like again, if you feel like this panel is a little bit too small, you can just drag them, move them around. Right? And you can change if the panels are going to resize, or you just expand this one without resizing the other ones. So there's a ton of different things that you can change about these behaviors as well. And of course, you can't have manga or webtoon or comic books without speech bubbles. So we are gonna look for speech bubbles, and the super professional streamer presenter right here completely forgot where speech bubble is. Oh, over here. Sometimes it happens, right? I have a brain fart. So there is like a balloon little tab over here, and basically it's just these balloon thingy. We're gonna have. Oh, you know what? Let's draw a balloon pen. So I'm just going to have this. Oh, it's all black. It's a black. Fill color white. There you go. All right. There. You see how easy that is? I just wanted to have a speech bubble, and then it's basically going to like create that on a completely separate layer. So, and it's going to like cover everything that is underneath it. So this means making the speech bubble for these is just insanely easy. And because the speech bubble are all vector, like if I want to, change kind of the size of the bubble, I can do that very easily. Like if I did not like that point, just make it slightly bigger. And I can also go in, like that line was too thin, right? So I can go into brush size and then increase that. And that's a very aggressive bubble. It's a little bit too aggressive, but you know what I mean. Right? I can just do like that. So these are the type of things that are exclusive in Clip Studio Paint, and that's why it's such a powerful tool for manga and animation, because these things are basically built specifically for it, right? So all of the things that basically all of the features is going to allow you to speed things up is why they designed these features to begin with. So those are the comic stuff. I really wish I can like go over more on it. I'm like dying to kind of decide like what parts I want to cover. All right. So the last bit of it, let me see, is animation. Again, everything that you just saw can actually be applied directly in animation. And these are the animatics that I actually can't show too much because of the content itself. But I'm going to like scroll through some of the frames. For these are like animatics, so I only did keyframing. But everything you just saw, like including vector layer, including a 3D model, including background, or even just the perspective rulers, which we didn't even have time to cover today, or the painting brushes, etc., can apply inside the animation timeline in Clip Studio Paint. Now, the Clip Studio Paint Pro version caps at 24 frames total. The EX allows you to go unlimited. So if you do want to animate a full length film, for example, or a full 5-minute shorts, you would have to indeed get the Clip Studio Paint EX. And so, but as you can see, like each of these cell is going to be nested inside a folder, and then I can have like different layers. So I can have like sketch layer, I can have even sketchier layer, I can have some background paint stuff, line art, duplicate line art. All of that is super flexible. So I can import audio file, I can play around with the camera works. Again, because animation is such a massive subject, I can only show you that it is doable. But I unfortunately cannot teach you how to animate inside Clip Studio. Or can I? Let's try. Do we have time? No, I don't think so, but whatever. Let's give this a try. Okay. I'm just gonna start like an animation file. Let's go in. I'm gonna start an animation folder. Okay. And new animation cell. And I'm just going to do like a circle, and then I'm going to move to here and just going to start another cell. Oh, I can enable onion skin as well. So do this. You basically just move along, add an animation cell, draw again, move along, add an animation cell. I have a hotkey for this. I totally forgot because my brain has farted. But it is really just that easy. You just move along, and it's going to automatically generate the cells in a row for you, and then you just use F5 to let it play. And let's just pretend that is the most beautiful animation you've ever seen. Super inspiring. So that's it. Like, it's really just that easy to animate in Clip Studio. It's very straightforward, but at the same time, if you really want to get into it, there's a lot to get into. But I think, let me just disable that. Did we go over everything? I feel like that is it. I don't know if it is 5 o'clock, but I'm going to cheat time. I'm just going to like blame the screen share thing. If you guys have any question, you can feel free to put it in the chat, like the message, and I'm just going to put it in this in the screen, and hopefully you can screenshot if you're curious. Do I have any social? Yes. So this is my social. I go by the one with bear on all social media. And if you go to tinyurl.com/CSP tutorials, Clip Studio Paint tutorials, tinyurl.com/CSP tutorials, I made a series covering each of the subject that I just showed you, a lot more in depth. So this is including comics, what's available in the comic features. This is including like animation, how to animate properly, and also brushes, vector stuff, and rulers, which is something we did not cover today. So if you're curious about those, you can actually go to this playlist on YouTube and kind of just watch them. I think there are 8 videos in total. And And then lastly, there is a free book for you on behalf of Clip Studio Paint, on behalf of Graphixly. So this book is called The Artist Roadmap to Multiple Streams of Income. And if you guys are interested in making art your career in the future, it might be really good to start like planning on top of just drawing, like planning business wise, how would you navigate in the art world? And so if you go to graphixly.com/book and use the discount code GRIDBOOK, you will be able to receive the book for free. Can I put the link? Yes, I can put the link in the chat. Let me put that in there. And then this is for the book. You're welcome. So if you go to that link and then discount code GRIDBOOK, you will be able to get the book for free. All right, I'm hoping I didn't actually miss any question. I guess like some of them kind of like popped up, and if I did miss it, I'm so sorry. You can feel free to message me on my social media. Again, I am the one with Bear. You can message me on like Instagram, I guess, Twitter, DeviantArt, which is the place that I'm the most active on. So shoot me a message, and I would be happy to kind of go over any question you may have.
Thank you so much. This has been amazing.
Thank
I hope everybody's
you.
taking advantage of the free grid book and so many great things. I'm going to check out those videos that you're sharing. Just amazing stuff this program can do.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much for having me and for sitting through the whole session. I really appreciate it.
Right.
Again,
We'll see everybody tomorrow for day 3, even more workshops from DreamWorks and Edit Mentor, Get Lit, Inner City Arts, 1500 Sound Academy. Stop on by tomorrow.
bye guys.